Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Spirit Podcast. Today I have with me Michael Christopher, a accomplished medium. He does private readings and is located in North Dakota. He also has a radio broadcast channel called Spiritually Imperfect, where you kind of gather and talk about your thoughts on mediumship, answer viewers' questions, and I find it really fascinating and also really educational. So I appreciate that you have that radio channel.
Well,
So
thank you.
welcome. Yes.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. And we go way back. We've known each other
Yeah,
for years now. And I think I love having people on so I don't know if you know this about the podcast. I really only interview mediums,
Oh,
specifically evidential mediums, because I think there's so much to explore. And just to kind of normalize it, chat about it, learn more about how people work and your story. And we've traded readings. So I know how
yes.
good you are. And I remember
Ditto. Right back at you.
oh, you're so sweet. And so I just really appreciate your like pragmatic approach to evidential mediumship, where it's really important for you to have precise evidence. And I just love the way that you read. And I also find it interesting. I don't think there's a lot of male mediums. I could be wrong, but I think you're kind of few and far
You're
between.
right. You're right. I'm like, I need to find some male like companions in this work because there isn't a lot, and I'm trying to get people to come out.
Yes.
I know
And
they're
so
out there.
I think you probably have a really interesting perspective on maybe what it's like to navigate this world as, I know you're also a professional in your real life or other work. And so how is that for you? Do people find it strange when they find out you're a medium? Um, I don't know, just
Uh,
share a little bit of that.
Um, I think they're a little bit surprised, especially people that, are close to me. But yeah, I was 20 years in the military, where I did air traffic control, and I continue to do air traffic control still. So,
Mhm.
and then they hear it's either vice versa, like they know I'm an air traffic controller, then they find out or I talk about somehow that I'm a medium, and they're like, whoa, what? And then when I tell people, people that know me as a medium, and then I tell them what my career is, they're like, whoa, how, what? So it's kind of like, you don't find too many air traffic control mediums or vice versa. So they're like, first question is like, well, how do you balance that out? And I'm like, it's funny because I've tried to get away from my career and do this full time, but for some reason, I just need the chaos. And I get plenty of chaos from the air traffic control side. And then, I come over here and it's a little bit more subtle. So,
I find too, I crave doing other work too. It's almost like I need to be anchored into being a human here on earth,
yeah,
having this experience, because so much in the other world is really taxing. And so I want to get into that as well. But first, please just share a little bit about how you got into this work, because I loved hearing your story early on that you kind of were reluctantly pulled into this world by spirit, really,
yeah,
to be a medium. So can you share with our listeners what that was like for you?
absolutely. As I said earlier before we started, I can talk, so feel free to cut me off. So it is kind of a long story. So I'll start with, um, I lost two of my brothers from complications from cystic fibrosis, Jason at age 26 and 97, Danny in 2012, and he had already gone through two separate double lung transplants at that point. Um, and then in 2015, my sister was murdered. So those three were significant over the years, but I have to go back. My story kind of jumps around. Around 3 years after Jason passed, so that was the year 2000. I discovered John Edward on TV. I was just pulled in by that. I was like, whoa, fascinated. And around that time, too, that's when I was diagnosed with kidney disease. So all this chaos was going on. And I remember watching John Edward and the comfort and peace it gave me just from giving me to open up to the possibility that there's more beyond this world,
Mhm.
which gave me peace, with Jason's passing at that time. And knowing that if things went south with my condition, I was like, okay, maybe there is more. Um, so that led me to reading books on mediumship and just, it was just a hobby. So
Mhm.
that's all it was. I never thought I'm going to be a medium.
Yeah.
That thought never crossed my mind other than I remember having a thought one day, wouldn't that be something to be able to give somebody a message? Just the power and the comfort that must, just to be able to do that would be just amazing. Not knowing that, a few years down the road that, yeah, well, here I am doing that very thing. Um, so yeah, it really, after going through my transplant and then after Jackie's passing, that's when things kind of to change a little bit because I had never had a paranormal experience up until that point. None that I can actually remember, but it was after Jackie's passing, probably a couple weeks afterwards, that I remember waking up, getting ready for work. I was in my kitchen alone. I know I was alone. Um, and it felt like somebody walked in the room with me. And I was like, weird. I turned around and there was nobody there. I was like, huh. Went back to doing what I was doing. And probably a few seconds later, I felt it again. But this time in my mind, I saw my sister standing behind me. And I was like, it freaked me out because I was like, I was not thinking about her.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Happened.
Yeah. So again, I feel the energy up behind me. I see her and I see her in my mind walk up behind me and she puts her arms around me and puts her head on my shoulder. So I'm
Oh.
feeling the energy of this and I'm seeing it in my mind and I'm freaking out because I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And maybe, 30 seconds later, everything kind of dissipated. Um, and it left me like, what what just happened? I don't think I talked about it for a week or so. But yeah, that was like the turning point.
Mhm.
Um,
I don't know if I ever shared my story with you, but actually, the very first time that I consciously was aware that
mhm.
something was going on, it was my mom coming up behind me like that and touching my
Wow.
shoulder and saying, "Pearl, I have to talk to you." And so it's
Whoa.
interesting to hear your story because it same thing. I was at the computer, like minding my own business.
Yeah.
Didn't expect it. And that's when I was like, whoa, there's something to this. And I think, like you, it's your sister. This is my mom. We can't ignore this. We know what
Right.
our loved ones feel like with this
Yeah.
intimate bond. So anyway, keep going. But that same thing happened to me.
Yeah. I mean, really after that, it was weird because at the time I actually reached out to a psychic, which I was like, never thought I'd do, but her case was still unsolved like a month or so later, actually 5 months until they figured out who did it. But anyway, shortly after I was working out one day and I saw this website and or a video on YouTube about somebody channeling somebody's son. And I saw the website, went there, saw that they had psychics that work on these cases. I reached out, just basically asked, hey, can somebody point me in the right direction? This is my case or my situation. And two ladies reached out to me and they just started helping me. They didn't ask for anything. They just would talk to me and offer up whatever information. So we got to know each other. And it was probably a few weeks later that I mentioned what had happened. And I didn't say any details, but the one medium validated right then and there. It's like, your sister wants you to know that that happened. And she pretty much said exactly what happened. I was like, whoa. And it was probably a conversation later, like a couple days later, with the same woman that as we're talking, in my mind, I hear this man say, tell her it's Jim. And I was like, where the heck did that thought come from? I didn't acknowledge it. I kept talking to her. And then he said it again. And then the third time, it's like, I passed the cancer. And I was like, okay, this woman's already a medium, so she's not going to think I'm nuts.
Yeah.
I was like, Linda, I said, I'm hearing this man tell me that his name is Jim and he passed the cancer. And she's like, that's my father. And I was like, what?
Wow. And you're getting like well, first of all, I think it's awesome that they're like, hey, we have a really practical person here who needs some facts and evidence if he's going to believe what we're saying. So
Exactly.
I love that they're already like giving it to you like you need it. And wow, you're getting names and
Well,
like,
and I want to say that doesn't happen all the time.
right.
So I
But
it
that's so
does
cool
happen.
that one of
Yeah.
your first, times
Yeah.
delivering a message, it was that, you know,
Yeah.
accurate. Yeah.
And then she's like, well, what else does he have to say? And I'm like, at that time, I'm like waiting. And I'm like, okay, he shows me a heart and says, I love you.
Oh,
That's what I'm feeling. And she's like, yeah. And she was just like, well, you're a medium. I'm like, no, so we debated that for probably 10 minutes. And finally, she's like, look, why don't you take this class? It's just a beginner's intuition development class. You just take it and see what happens. And this is a friend of mine, Mimi Bonham, that I don't think she does this work anymore, but it's been almost, well, 10 years. But thank goodness for her because she was very practical in the way she taught. And again, I'll be brief on this, but it was just like each week we learned about a different Claire. So at this point in my mind, mediums were people that saw spirit like they do people. They saw them physically, they heard them physically. I was like, that was my idea because I had never read up until that point somebody's process.
mhm.
So the first week we're learning about, I think, clairvoyance. And as soon as Mimi talked about most of us receive in our mind, we see it in our mind's eye. I was like, the light bulb went on. I'm like, oh,
Oh, that happens to me. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then the same thing with clairaudience. I was like, oh, it's a thought. Once that little piece was thrown in, I was like, that everything just opened up. And I'm like, so this has been a thing for like a long time. I just didn't know what it was. I
Yeah.
thought, well, this is normal.
Right.
And then you find out that it is normal. We're all mediums and psychics, but some of us are just a little bit more attuned to this. Kind of like I always use the analogy of a professional sports player, baseball. Everybody can go out and play baseball in the backyard, but not everybody's going to develop to the major leagues. And I tell people this because I'm like, you can get messages.
Yeah.
You may not be a medium, you don't have to be, but everybody is capable of receiving messages. And some people just
Yeah.
naturally develop to a point where they do this work.
And I think a big part of it is, well, and I love that analogy. And yes, I agree 100%. I also think there's this piece of a calling that it's not
Yeah.
there for everybody. And I think for you, I love that your sister was such a big part of that for you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's not the easiest work. So,
Oh my God. I thought air traffic control was challenging. It's like it is in its own way, but
yeah,
mediumship, there's, you know, I want to touch first on what you said about, Jackie and a calling and all that, because like we said before we started, I was not even thinking this was something I was going to do. And I was still reluctant. I'm like, no, I'll play around with this, but I'm like, no. And as time went by and I took class and another class, the thought just started permeating about, you know, when I received a message or I saw John Edward and how much comfort those experiences gave me. That's when the idea started to form that, all right, maybe there's something here, but I was still like, no. And I remember when I finally caved in, I was like, look, spirit, spirit world. I have a very short attention span. I'm not going to learn symbols. I'm not going to hold crystals. And I'm not dogging anything. So let me say that right away. I'm just like, I eat meat, I drink beer, I cuss. I'm a person.
yeah.
First and foremost, I'm not changing who I am. So remember that if you're picking me, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And, I just started doing these readings. I don't know how. Literally did I did a group reading in person probably 2 or 3 months after taking that class with me. I don't know where or how. I just have this habit of throwing myself in these really uncomfortable situations to see what happens. Um, and that's how it kind of got started. And then again with Mimi, I didn't know, and I got to say this because I don't remember her telling me this, or I just don't remember, but she had a YouTube channel. So she invited me to collaborate on some work with her. Um, and I, again, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know where this was going, but all of a sudden I have people emailing me like, "Hey, I see your work. I love your work. How do you do readings?" And I'm like, "Where did you hear about me? I'm not, I don't think I had a website at that time. I had Facebook." They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we saw your YouTube channel." I was like, "I'm not on YouTube." And I was like, "Mimi, do you have a YouTube channel?" She's like, "Yeah, remember I put these." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So literally people around the world were reaching out and I'm like 6 months into this. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. So in so many ways, spirit really pulled you to do
Yeah,
this work. Yeah. And I love what
yeah,
you were saying. And I love your humor about, I eat meat, I'm just all this. Because that's why I love your perspective and that this isn't, some category of spirituality that I think it can be perceived. There's not,
right.
I imagine there's not a neon psychic sign on your office. You know what I mean?
No,
Like, but you're still called to do this work, and that's why it's so very practical in the way that you approach it, and I just really appreciate that. Um, yeah,
thank you.
and I
And I do. I want people to realize you don't have to change who you are to
yeah,
do this work.
yeah,
That's very important to understand that we're a soul first. We're here in this physical environment temporarily. And I have so many thoughts where I just sit and think about things that I've experienced and what other people, just everything, all aspects of this work. And it's like, especially the connecting part. I'm like, okay, at first I had to do meditation because that's how it was taught. And after a while, I'm like, I'm very impatient. I'm like, why do I have to meditate? If like you and I are having this conversation, I didn't have to sit down and meditate for you and I to sit here and have this
yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
So I thought, why do I have to do this for spirit? And I proved to myself that
right,
you don't. Now, it's important. Meditation is important for other reasons.
yes.
My point is, you don't need it in order to communicate with spirit.
So how, yes, I agree. And I was just having this conversation with Kelly, who and
Yep.
we talked about Mavis. I don't know if you ever learned from
I,
Mavis
I
Patel.
didn't learn from her, but I know a lot about her.
Yeah, same. That's what I was saying. I've read her books and like
Yep.
watched her videos, but she really taught Kelly that you go from sitting up to standing up and you're ready for the spirit world kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, and yes, I love that. And how would you describe for our listeners? Because I do feel like a lot of our listeners are developing in some kind of way into this
Mhm.
work, or just have a profound interest. How would you describe that feeling is turning on to the spirit world? Or how would you describe being ready in an instant?
So that was another thing that I discovered right away. I have to do nothing besides sit down and here we go. And everything I believe is a mindset. And again, there's no right or wrong. Whatever works for you, continue to do what works for you. Don't ever let anybody influence how you feel about a certain way of doing this. It's very important just to do you, right?
Everybody works
So
differently.
exactly. So if you have to go hug a tree before you do a reading, go hug that tree. That works for you. Don't change. For me, I just it's I don't know where I learned this because I don't want to take credit for me developing this by myself, but it was something I learned somewhere along the way that the second that you think of the spirit world, you're connected. You don't have to do anything else besides that, beyond that. And again, that's what I proved when I figured out I don't have to meditate for 20 minutes before reading. My intention's already set that when I sit down with a client, we're on, we're ready, they're here.
Yeah.
Um, and that took a little developing and trust, but that's kind of how it is for me. It's like, here we go.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump right to a question that is one that I ask everybody. There's two
Yeah,
questions I found that I'm just so interested in every interview. One being, how has your relationship with God? And I say that with
yeah,
like, it's a loaded thing, because it's
yeah,
for some people universe, depending on how you grew up. But
yeah,
I know for me, having done this work for years now has transformed my relationship and perception of God in such
yeah.
a profound way. So how has your perception of God or relationship with God changed in doing this work?
Yeah. So I was raised Roman Catholic, which is like very strict Catholic.
Okay.
Um, and I remember, after graduating high school, I was like, I something wasn't clicking with me with religion. And again, this is just my own personal views on everything. Um, I just had trouble believing that there's somebody out to punish you if you do wrong and just all aspects of that. So I kind of just veered off from that point. And I always had this belief that there's something out there that's greater than, me.
Yeah.
And even now, I don't believe that. I believe everybody's equal. We're all part of this source energy, whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of like, yeah, my beliefs have changed, but I just believe that there's a source for all of what we're experiencing. We're all a part of that. We're all a spark of that.
Yeah.
Um, so if you want to call that God, call that God. I just know that there's this power out there that we're all a part of, and um, we come here in this physical form, but we go back
Mm.
and we're all connected in that way. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. And also because I think that in doing this work and, reading after reading after reading of translating for
Hmm.
the spirit world, we learn so much and we
Yeah,
do kind of start to understand this perception of what you just described of
yeah,
we are also inherently God and the
yeah.
particles that make us up are the same that vibrate at that high frequency on the other side and we
Hmm.
don't die. And I think
Right.
reading after reading, it's like proof to us still, I mean, to me still, like, wow, yeah, this is, I for sure, this is a part of my structured belief system now that,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And again, it's a great thing. It brings people together. It's just, you know, anything that just brings people together and gives you comfort, that's fantastic. Um, but yeah, as far as, and I also really believe that religion is a human-based concept.
yeah,
Um, Again, I don't know everything. I just have this feeling that that's here. I don't believe religion exists on the other side. I think we just exist as a soul and spirit. However that is, I don't know because I'm sure you get the questions too,
mhm,
that especially from the medium's perspective, a lot of people that are deeply religious have a lot of interpersonal struggle with wanting to do this work, but then their religion holds them back, so I see a lot of that.
I know, me too. And also still, when I'm exposed to it, judgment for the work we do from people who are in different religious
Yeah.
organizations, which is it's really mind-boggling to me. I feel like I've said this before on the podcast. It blows me away because I am closer to God and the concept of goodness and everything in relation to what but I had to find God outside of religion. And
Right.
so my relationship with God is very strong. And and so that's the irony is that when I was navigating life through looking for that,
Yeah.
looking for the meaning of life and God throughout my life, and I grew up Presbyterian and um I had a meeting with the pastor because I said I need to know what happens when we die and that it's not lights out, it's black,
Hmm.
and he said, well, it might be, and I walked away so disheartened because it was like a dead end when you're really
Hmm.
looking for answers. Um, and so I also love how you spoke to the fact that like we don't know, and I think anybody who in this industry who does this work and says they know exactly what happens when we die and this is exactly what heaven is like, it's like red flag.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
because
I
we get glimpses, we get
yeah.
stories, we get feelings, but like we do not know.
I don't think we're supposed to know because we're here for a reason.
Mhm.
We know that that exists. I don't believe it. I know there's more. My mind will not allow me to believe that this is it. This is all we are. Um, so it's kind of like because a lot of people I see that do this work, and a lot of just people in general, they want to spend their time always thinking about the spirit world. I'm like, no, man, time out. We're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes, it's comforting to know that we probably go somewhere else, but for now, it's like we're here to go through all this mess that we're in. The good times, the bad times, whatever. This is a school. This is how I've learned to look at life as a school and lessons we're supposed to learn to develop our soul. So it's like, give me all the shit. Sorry, I don't know about that. Give me all the bad stuff, whatever. Give me the lessons, and I just keep that in the back of my mind that this is not
Mhm.
forever, you
Yeah.
know, you know. I know that that was a huge tangent.
No,
Um,
and but I think it's an important one because like I also feel like what I've heard from the spirit world is what we do here matters
yes,
and it affects things over there. And when I try to describe what I think heaven is like, um, the one of the things that I find interesting or that I feel like I've been shown a few times, and tell me if you've been shown this, we're it's not too dissimilar from here. Like it's
yeah,
elevated, we're still working, we're still our soul is still carrying on and we're still doing things. And so
yeah.
I don't know, is that your perception or what can you share that you've gathered?
I definitely believe that. I believe. Wow, your mind ever just go completely blank for no
Yeah.
reason? That just happened. Um,
What do I
but
believe? I guess
yeah,
I'm still figuring, there's just so
yeah,
much to be shown
yeah,
and to be explored and I don't think we really know until we die what it's like and what happens. But
right.
um,
I believe that whatever's in our mind or whatever our belief system is kind of what we'll experience over there because I believe that's a world of
yeah.
it's consciousness, but it's your own individual perception of what it is. So if, I always have the again, I don't know where I picked this up, but it's probably a book I've read over the years that you create your environment. So in my mind, it's like I already have my cabin on the lake built. When
Okay.
I leave here, that's the first place I'm going to sit on my porch and just sit out at the lake and fish and drink beer and chill out for a while and reflect on what the heck I just put myself through.
Yeah.
Um, but I believe that at some point that because again, I believe that we're these energetic beings, formless. And I believe the transition back, you may carry some of this physical environment just to give us that comfort. But I believe at some point we go back to just being an energetic being. However that looks, I have no idea. I do have one idea. This is the strangest thing. I have a friend of mine that passed away that was in the military with me. I still remember this visit. He literally was trying to explain to me how it is over there, and he showed me it was like looking at a game of Tetris, if you remember that, and how
Yes.
all these pieces are different colors and different vibrations and how they fit together. And I'm like, what are you trying to say? He's like, and of course, being him, knowing him, he's like, yeah, I knew you wouldn't get this, but this is kind of what it's like. And you brought this up earlier that I don't think we're supposed to know what that is like. Like you said, we get glimpses.
Yeah.
And I know this may go against the grain because a lot of people have written books on this, on what they know about the other side. And I'm like, I think you just have this idea that you're perpetuating from your perspective,
Yeah.
but I have a hard time believing that someone's got this all figured out.
Yeah. And sometimes I think the research from our human perspective, because I think what you just described is like your friend trying to describe something that our like human brains cannot comprehend.
Right.
So sometimes I think the research that we do has to do with near death experiences
Yes.
and what that's like. But that's still from our human brain perspective or what we can absorb. One thing, echoing what you said, one thing that I noticed that does happen with spirit is if they're giving this evidence in a reading, evidence,
Hmm.
evidence, evidence, and then they do start to share a little bit of something about the spirit world. I always say, well, why wouldn't we believe it? If everything else they say is true, then of course I'm going to believe a little bit of what they're saying. But I say a little bit because that's all they give us. Like they're
Yeah,
showing us little glimpses of heaven, but it's like there's this universal law or rule that they can't tell us. They cannot.
exactly.
Like so, and I feel them holding back about that or giving this feeling to us like that's all. That's all you get.
And if you look at near-death experiences too, right? They only go to a certain point,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's usually reflecting on the physical life that they're living.
Yeah.
They get the feelings of being over here, like the
Mhm.
complete like release of like responsibilities for anything
Mhm.
and just that relief. Like maybe if you win the lottery, it's like, oh my God, my troubles are all, I'm just trying to assimilate this in a human perspective. That's the feeling I get is like, it's like,
Yeah.
I finally get to really, relax. So I've heard that perspective from over there or
Yeah.
from people that come back from that. But there's always a point to like, no, you can't go beyond this point. You're going back.
Yeah.
And again, I believe that's a reason. I
That these
believe
lives
those
are,
near-death experiences are important because it does. Again, it validates that, all right, there is more, but we're not supposed to know about it.
yeah, and that these lives are so important that when we're
Yeah.
meant to stay here, there's reasons for our soul evolution. It's important. And I think good to remember we chose this. We wanted to come.
Yeah.
We were excited to jump into this life, you know?
I'm going to kick my own butt the
I
second I get back because I'm like, okay, I know I came up with all this, but why did you let me do this? And they're like,
yeah,
we tried to tell you not to do this, but
that's
you wouldn't
funny.
listen.
Oh, well, I'm going to do a little bit of a shift here, and change direction.
Okay.
I know that because I follow you on social media, I know that you sometimes post about Bashar,
Yes.
and I think that's cool. I love Bashar. I think he has fascinating things to say. And I wonder, I guess, two things. What's your perspective on channeling? Have you ever done that? Have you been called to do that? And then we'll talk about the aliens in a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So one, no, I don't, I've considered maybe trance channeling, but I haven't really taken that step. Um, I am very skeptical, which I'm skeptical of my own work. So, I mean, to say I'm a skeptic, I'm a skeptic of myself. So I'll put that out there first.
Which is
Uh,
healthy, which is
yeah,
good, I think. Go ahead.
I do too. You have to have discernment.
Mhm.
Um, but with him, with Daryl Anka and the way he channels Bashar, um, there are some things he talks about that I'm like, wow, it just changes your thought pattern about a certain topic. And it's like, interesting. But a lot of stuff he says does make sense, or at least fits into what I believe about there and why we're here. One thing that comes to mind is like the expectations of what your life is supposed to be. That's like a most fascinating topic that I think I've tried to teach myself and others. It's like, and I learned this going through all my health issues. Tomorrow is not here. Tomorrow doesn't matter. I had to live in that perspective to keep my sanity going through those years of knowing something was wrong, not knowing when the rug was going to get pulled out. So I had to really focus on living it in the now. But if you look at spirituality, there is no past, there is no future. Everything is happening now. And it just fits into everything, especially about that topic that he talks about. Don't like with our work that we do, we probably have in our mind where we want it to go, but it's like that's not here yet. Just take it and just let it lead to where it leads. Um, but yeah, I do look at anybody that does that work, trans channeling, with a great deal of skepticism.
Yeah, same. Um, and I think that's important too. But I find I like how humorous he is, and
Yes.
there is a certain perspective where it's like, yeah, this I just appreciate him as well. And I asked my husband, which I often do you have any questions for this person? This is who they are, this is their perspective. And I think he got really excited when he heard that you also were interested in Bashar because he's like, well, what does he think about what Bashar says about the aliens coming or being shown to us at some point in the near future?
Yeah. I with me, I'll just tell you this, nothing is off the table. When we talk to people that are, dead, air quotes dead,
Mhm.
how can we limit to like, okay, this exists, but not that?
Yeah.
So I believe that we exist in so many different forms that this, like, we could be incarnated on different planets, whatever, because only a certain amount of our soul is here with us now. So when I hear him talk about that, I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't that be a possibility?
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing is off the table in my mind.
Yeah. And I just in chatting with Kelly, I thought she said something interesting where she actually said that she believes that the angels are extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
And
Why?
like we're seated here
Yeah.
potentially, and they're yeah,
That is so fascinating that she put it in that perspective because yeah, I mean, if you look at angels themselves, they're beings that never incarnated in a physical body.
yeah,
So everything's alien to us if you want to think of it
yeah,
that
right.
way. Um,
Or we're the, and then it goes back to like maybe we're the aliens, you know?
yeah, we're the strange ones. We're sitting here with these weird bodies and
Mhm.
yeah.
I know, so
So,
fascinating. And because I was asking her too, because she had gone to Egypt. And I've heard other people's takes on the energy of Egypt and the pyramids. And there's very much always kind of an alien conversation that comes up with people who've been there and been in that energy, especially mediums. So,
oh yeah, how did those pyramids get built with the technology that they, had back then? I mean, you got to look at things and go, there's something more.
yeah,
There's something bigger than us. There has to be,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So,
And have you ever done readings where anything comes in like aliens or I only think of like one client that I had that had what's the word when you're abducted.
yeah.
And it really I found it strange because I think I went into it thinking, yeah, right. You know?
Mhm.
And then in the reading, Spirit was saying something different. And I thought, okay, there's so much I have that I don't know and that I
Right.
have to learn about so much.
I personally I can't recall ever anything besides maybe an archangel, which I don't intentionally channel, but if for some reason an archangel would pop into my awareness for this person, I'm going to talk about what I'm experiencing, but I don't set an intention to talk to
Yeah.
really anybody besides their relatives, friends, or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but it's interesting because when you were talking about the abduction, the thought that just came into my mind was astral travel. Like
Yes.
their body isn't really going there, it's just their spirit. Their
Is there a difference even? Because we know in doing this work that
yeah,
our mind's eye is also very much real.
yeah. So that's the vision I got was okay, their soul, their spirit went to the alien,
Yeah.
their body stays there,
Mhm.
in their bed or whatever is going on. That's how I envision it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's cases where people are driving their cars and they get sucked up into it. So how do you explain that? Again, nothing's off the table, but it's just fascinating to think about.
It is very fascinating. Um, okay, so let's see. I this is another question I always ask
Mhm.
professional mediums because you've been doing this work for years. I'm sure that you've learned along the way good ways to self-care or have self-preservation so
Oh yeah.
so you can be the best medium that you can be. Can you share anything that you've learned about that or what helps you?
Oh yeah, like quitting for a while. Like I've like
Breaks,
walked.
long breaks.
Oh my God, last year I stopped in August and didn't come back till like January of this year because I was questioning myself. I was like wondering, why am I still doing this? Why am I still putting myself through this? All those aspects that every medium goes through. It's like, why am I doing this work? And it's taxing and
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Um, so I think breaks are important. When you feel that need to step away, step away.
Mhm.
I've seen and talked to so many people that force their way through it. I'm like, that's not healthy in my opinion.
Yeah.
Again, we're here for a reason. If
Right.
we're getting too bogged down on the other side, it's like, whoa,
Right.
step back, live your life. and grounding and self-care and all that. Literally during the summers, I'm out on my motorcycle. That's
Amazing.
my like peace. I'm like, I just get on there and just go.
Yeah.
I play drums.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I play guitar, but I will experiment with my guitars and my basses. And
Yeah.
to me, it's just those type things just keep me
What you love to
here.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, just whatever what's your passion,
Do
you
you
know?
do you think that this work requires something different of us physically? I really don't think science has it figured out what it's doing
Um,
to us, and so then in turn the best way to support it. I think the
yeah,
best way I can perceive it is I see and I'm not a medical medium. I do not know the medical world so well, but visually I've seen it like our cells are just stressed a little more. Like our like almost like these parts of our body are just so I don't know what that would be called, but um we're being taxed in a different way when we do this
yeah.
work. And so yeah, so we require a different kind of care to be able to do this work.
Well, one, we have to shut down,
Yeah.
and we both were talking about a certain teacher that we studied with. And one of the things that he said, it's like, and I do this anyway, when I'm not actively doing a reading, I'm not thinking about spirits and that I'm literally not. And I think that's a good practice in and of itself is like when you're not working, just step away. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. You have to give yourself that downtime. I believe taking care of your physical body. I work out every day. A lot of that stems from going through the kidney transplant. And I have a responsibility to my friend who, literally risked his life to save mine. I'm like, I, I have to be the best person I can, and I have a responsibility to take care of myself.
Yeah.
So I literally exercise every day. To me, that's important. It just makes me feel good mentally, physically. It de-stresses just everything about it. Eating well, again, not a specific diet, but I'm really careful about what I eat.
Yeah.
Again, it's an instrument. So to me, you have to keep it in the best shape possible for everything. Just getting up out of bed without being full of aches and pains is one good reason. But but to do the work we do, I believe you really have to have to take care of your physical
You
body.
have to
You
take
have
really good
to.
care of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've also noticed that I require more alone time than ever.
Oh, definitely. Hence the motorcycle.
Nice. Yeah. I love that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and we kind of touched on this a little bit before we started recording. But why do you think the culture of mediumship, and I'm talking about other people who do this work, it can be a little bit competitive
Oh my
and
God.
and a little bit mm, well, I don't know the word to describe it. Maybe you could fill in the blank, but I was surprised because I think when I stepped into this work, and you were one of the
Mhm.
first people I met and um, clicked with, and were so gracious, and I think I had rose colored glasses on because it was like my people, other
Yeah.
people who do this work. And then I think really quickly I was like, oh, all mediums are not created equal or whatever. The people doing this work will it just felt really not what I originally thought. And so
Yes.
why do you think that is? What's up with that?
I think a lot of that's just the person, if they have issues or things they haven't dealt with and their egos. And I mean, it's hard to answer, but I mean, I think of this. There are more dead people that we can communicate with. It's not a competition. We need more mediums. We don't need to like snuff each other out by the stuff that we've seen because it's definitely out there. Like, yeah, the competition and putting other mediums down. And I'm like, I want no part of that. To me, it's like I want everybody that I come in contact with to be better than I am, because it's like this work is important. We need more ethical mediums that are doing this work for the right reason. And I think if you if you have that mindset of we're here to help each other, and anybody that puts their trust in us to sit down with us and talk to their people on the other side, I mean, the more the merrier. That we just need that, and there's no time for that other pettiness. There really isn't. And again, when you're using your gut, whether we just talked about it, whether you feel if somebody's like, all
Yeah,
right, maybe they're just not mature enough right now to handle what's going on, but yeah, I probably will not spend a lot of time with that person.
because
Um,
and that's oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut
oh
you off.
no, that was it.
Well, and I think that's why, because I think you and I have learned from all sorts of teachers too over the years. And so I
Yeah,
think I was really drawn to um, the spiritualist church a bit in the sense of, and where was I going with this? Oh, it's not about, so something, this is what I was going to say. Something about the American mediums and psychics. Like I loved Sylvia Brown growing up.
same here.
I
Read
like
all her books.
yeah. Oh, I still love her. When people
Got to
like,
meet her. Got to meet her before she passed. So
I didn't meet her, but I saw her live. So that was like in Denver. That was a big, exciting thing. My dad took me. I was in high school. Um, I love her. And I think she was really misunderstood. And I think she's an easy target for people to say, because I think there was one missing person case that she got
yep,
wrong.
I remember
That's
that.
the one that they splatter all over and put her down.
Absolutely.
Um, but I think there's so much to learn from her. And so maybe I just brought her up because I feel like, she wasn't maybe grounded in the learning of the way they do in England or in the spiritualist church, in it being this holy act and it's kind of this different thing. It's more, my perception of American mediums is more entertainment purposes, even the way that sometimes mediums have to say for entertainment purposes only, which just
Right.
irks me that that's something that people have to say to protect themselves. Because and I'm so drawn to the spiritualist church because it's about healing, because it's proof of heaven, because it's all of these things.
Hmm.
And that, like, ego aside, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I hate when people's perception of us is like a party trick, or are they going to say, like there's just this element that is kind of frustrating when it comes to what maybe even some mediums do or turn it into or thrive in that energy.
Right. And I believe that people that are doing this work for the right reasons will continue to go forward. And the ones that are not, I think, and we've seen it, there's probably people that we've started out with that you don't hear from anymore. But I think the ones that are doing this for the right reason are going to continue to push forward.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as far as like the work and spiritualists and the Americans, I don't know. For me personally, it's like I just do my own thing. I'm not out to prove this to anybody. Um, I'm lucky enough that, I've been put out there on whatever social media platforms, and people find me and they trust me to come see me, and I believe, being an evidential medium, which I believe is just a title. I think we all are capable of bringing through evidence,
Mhm.
but the ones that really work hard at this and are true to themselves and true to the spirit world, we don't have to prove anything. We just do the work, and the work is going to speak for itself,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Again, I
Yeah,
go off on these
absolutely.
tangents.
No, and I think it's a sacred work. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that frustrates me is if I see other people not treating it like such.
Oh, I
It's
get pissed.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
do, because we're already fighting against this notion of what we are and what mediums are, and
Mhm.
so it's like we're out there. That's why we find your tribe, if you will, um, that we just support each other because we know we're doing this for the right reason.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's like a constant battle to educate people on what this is and what it's not.
yeah,
I'm not going to tell you your future. That is,
yeah,
I don't want to say it's not possible. I don't. I may do it accidentally, But when I'm
Well,
doing psychic or anything,
and if
oh, go
spirit
ahead.
says it, it's different. You know what I mean? If spirit
Yeah.
says it, it's a little bit, and with all this evidence, it's a little different
Yeah.
than, and I noticed when I raised my prices way back, I think I was at a different price point when I was early on, that I think sometimes people came to me for bizarre relationship advice or
Yes.
just to test me out and have future predictions told to them.
Yeah.
When I really consciously shifted into this other price point of, hey, this is a sacred connection with the spirit world that should be taken seriously and treated as such. I didn't get
Yeah.
as many bookings like that as I
Same
did.
here.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson for any medium
Yeah.
that, because I was told earlier on, it's like, and I mean pricing, oh my God, that's like a constant inner battle for me. And I'm sure a lot of other people. But you're right. It's like you gotta remember how much time, how much money, um, how much effort that we put into our own development. That's worth something.
And
One.
education. It's
Yeah.
not cheap, the educations we
Yeah. But you're right. It's like if you're at that certain price point, people will they won't take it serious. They don't come prepared.
have.
They ask these really strange questions. So yeah, it's like you have to set yourself up. And unfortunately too, people look at your rates and judge you. Well, they must be good if they're at that price point. So there's this whole
It's
world that we could probably talk about when it comes to
yeah.
setting a price for our services.
And there's price points that are ridiculous. And
Oh my God, yes.
when I see ridiculous prices, it's like, well, they don't want to be doing one-on-one readings. That's what I think. When they're like
Yeah,
700 an hour, it's like, well, they just don't really want to be doing private readings. That's all. Um,
yeah.
yeah. But but yeah, I also think there's a responsibility for mediums
Hmm.
to charge an equal amount to other mediums who are in their same arena, or like,
Yes.
because I don't think it's respectful to charge so much less than somebody else locally in your area, or that you work with professionally, or that you read like I think it's a responsibility, like an ethic to all of us
Yep.
to have that awareness too, you know?
And that's what I do. I kind of look at people, and again, this isn't, I hope this doesn't come out wrong, but I do. I kind of look at people that I feel are on the same level or point, development point that I am
Yeah.
to gauge what I should be charging. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I've just done over the years. I'm like, okay, I've
Mhm.
seen this person work, I've seen that person work. Here's where they're at.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of set myself somewhere around that point too. Um, and you got to be fair to yourself. Again, people only see mediums on TV,
Mhm.
do not understand everything we go through. It's not always fun times and happy, cheery. I'm a medium. I mean, you're dealing with people when they're at their lowest point. They're grieving the loss of somebody. They're at this, we're in that energy. And it's like, again,
Mhm.
going back to self-care, but there's so much that we have to take into account.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why we charge what we do.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like, and I just said this recently, but I feel like I take such good care of myself to be a
Hmm.
good medium for the public. Like it sounds
Yeah.
silly, but like it's true. Like I take my work so seriously that it's that important to me, and to be on top of, and I could probably take better care of myself. I'm a mom. I do a lot. Like I have another job too. So it's like doing the best I can, but always
Hmm.
striving to be the best
Yeah.
translator for spirit or community, Yeah.
I think we're always pushing ourselves to be better than we were yesterday.
Yeah.
And again, for me personally, I've said this from the beginning. It's like, to spirit. I'm like, you better give it to me straight. I don't want to talk about rainbows and butterflies. And it's like, I need evidence because,
Yeah.
again, I'm a skeptic. So
Mhm.
you need to give me this information. And it's not for me, it's for your person. I want them to know that this is you. I don't want them to have any doubt in their mind that this is their person. And
Yeah.
the only way to do that is through providing that evidence. So
Absolutely.
again, it's like we set a standard for ourselves. We
Yeah.
put a
I was
lot of
gonna say
pressure on ourselves.
we have high standards. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I know, and that's another thing that irks me too is when I have seen people give readings and there's no evidence whatsoever, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "What?"
Yeah. 20 minutes into the reading and you're still like wondering, well, who is this person? You're giving me a message, but
Yeah.
who is it from? I
Yes.
don't know.
Yep. I know. 100%. And that's why I think I just really appreciate your perspective. And I think there's a lot of people out there, even listening right now, who are really drawn to that. Oh, that's somebody that I want to bring through my person. Somebody
Hmm.
talking like that, somebody who has those values. So there really is,
Same.
yeah, there really is a medium for everybody. And
There is.
there's no competition when it's healing.
No. And again, going back to something we talked about earlier, you have to be yourself. I
Mhm.
see so many other mediums students that try to emulate their teacher. I'm like, don't do that.
Yep.
That person already exists. We need you. You're going to, the people that are attracted to you will find you, but you need to be yourself.
Mhm.
I don't have all the answers. I can barely speak English sometimes. Um, I don't have myself figured out. I'm a hot mess most of the day. Um, but this is who I am. Take it or leave it. This is who I am.
And hearing you say that, a thought I just had also is I developed with a teacher that was really particular about almost like studying the encyclopedia so that we were really good on like names, dog breeds, the maps, all this stuff. And what I have found is that spirit uses everything that I know and understand. You know,
Hmm.
they know, oh, she's not really good with geography. So give her the song, Georgia, not a map
Yeah.
pointing to the state, Georgia, things like that. So I really think spirit works with us too and
Yeah.
uses our life understanding, our signs and symbols. And it's not the other way around. I mean, I think we can do some educating in that, but I don't think we need
Yeah.
to be so hard on ourselves because spirit uses our knowledge.
And they got their work cut out for them when they picked me because I'm like, this guy is like, oh boy, how are we going to get him to understand
But
this?
but oh boy, if they need to bring through a type of motorcycle, you're their
I'm on
guy.
it.
Oh, well, I have just so enjoyed our conversation. Thank
Me
you
too.
so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom and insight, and let people know where they can follow you. I'll also post it in the show
Sure.
notes, but let them know when your broadcast is and where they can find you to book a reading.
Yeah. So my website's michaelchristophermedium.com. I'm on Facebook, same thing, Michael Christopher, Evidential Medium, Instagram, TikTok again,
Again, for now.
uh, for now. But yeah, my friend Jennifer and I, we do our Spiritually Imperfect show every Friday at 7 p.m. Central. And
Great
it's either on
name.
this, yeah. My wife came up with it because we're like, we had a different name and found out it was a copyright, so we had to change it. My wife was like, "How about this?" I'm like, "Wow, that fits," because that's what we are. Nobody's perfect, especially me. So yeah, our show is literally it's for the people. Um, we want people to ask questions. We want people to have a place to go that may not have anybody to talk to about this stuff. So it's about bringing people together and letting them know that, hey, we're here just trying to figure this out with you. So we do readings, we answer questions. It's just we don't have an agenda. And that was our first show, No Agenda. But so we still have no agenda. It's just a different title. But yeah, we just whatever comes up. So it's about the people. We want to be able to be there for them, maybe help them figure themselves out.
And how cool and helping other people wake up to their abilities because I remember when I was first developing, it wasn't so accessible or easy to find places to learn from authentically.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yep. So we always remember that. So it's kind of like that's what this is about. We want to help everybody that we can and give them a place to go, a safe space for them to talk about their experiences or whatever the case may be. It's like, here we are.
oh, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you. And I love following you. I love the content you post. So if you don't already follow Michael Christopher, make sure that you do. I'll also link those social media pages. And thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Bye.
Bye bye.